Good day, everyone. How are you? Yes, I'm Bernadette Boas, and I'm introducing myself because we're also going out onto a couple of other platforms other than our Powerhouse Mavericks group in Facebook, where each Thursday at 1 o'clock, I provide this type of live training, live coaching, live support in whatever you need within your business or your life. So for those that might not be familiar with our Powerhouse Mavericks Facebook group, you can go over there and take a look and feel free to join. We'd love to have you. All right. But today's subject is all around mindset and the fact that it rules, it dictates, it determines everything that is happening in your universe. And therefore, I just thought it was really important. I have spent a good number of years kind of looking into this and really trying to understand it for myself, because I certainly walked around for decades upon decades, up until probably about 5 or 6 years ago, really not connecting with the fact that what was going on in between my two ears was really being the navigator, the dictator of everything that was happening around me, that I looked at as happening to me. But at the same time, I was recognizing that I was getting exactly what I was putting out in the world. And we talk about it a lot. We talk about mindset a lot in the Ball of Fire coaching community, in the Powerhouse Mavericks community, because of the fact that we have everything that we need right now. You have everything that you need right now as far as skill set. And yet you can't optimize and leverage that skill set if you have in any way, shape, or form any doubts or insecurities, fears or negativities in regards to your capability, your worth, your belief, and your true desire to pursue and achieve what it is that you want in the world. So I've been, kind of getting deeper and deeper studying it. And then in the last several months, I have been studying with Michael Beckwith online in one of his classes on mindvalley.com, if you're not familiar with it. And that's kind of drawing me more and more into this understanding and this connection between mindset and results, not only for myself, but even for my clients. And then over the last several weeks, the universe has definitely started bubbling up around me. I had a very large global presentation around mindset hacks, and about 3 weeks ago. And ever since then, and again, you know what you put out in the universe, you're bringing back. So here I'm doing all this study and research and discussion and coaching on mindset. And then I, have this kind of global conversation in regards to it. And I'm going to share some of that content today, as I want to really provide you some tips and hacks as far as what can you do to really start getting in touch with your own mindset and how it's driving your actions and results. So that was about 3 weeks ago. And then in the last 2 weeks, I have had close to a dozen conversations with individuals up until the last couple of days, that brought up, I didn't bring it up, they brought up just what was going on in their world, what was going on in their life, and the fact that they really didn't like what was going on, but they were recognizing that it was them influencing it. So let me give you a for instance. I have probably mentioned, especially in our Powerhouse Mavericks group over the last couple months, that I have been puppy sitting a friend's dog. She went off and had an opportunity to go to Paris, go to France for 2 months and really look for an opportunity on a project that she was really kind of passionate about. And she was determined that she was going to go and scope it out and see what she could do to get it kind of moving. And so she had been gone, and we've communicated every once in a while, but I led her to the work that she was doing, but very curious as to what was going on. So she got home yesterday morning and came by to pick up her pup. And we started having a conversation. I was like, okay, so how did it go? And, how did the project, kind of get started, and her whole body changed. And she said, well, all what I will say is I went with a certain expectation. I went with a certain idea. I went with a certain visualization in my head. And it didn't turn out to be, kind of how I envisioned it. And now she had a fabulous trip and she had fabulous experiences and she has a fabulous wealth of content that she can now use for some of the work that she does. But when it came to this particular dream, this particular goal, she acknowledged that as much as she had it and as much as she was visualizing on it, she didn't necessarily have the belief and the conviction and commitment that we talk a lot about. All of her thoughts and her feelings and her emotions wrapped around it kind of created her end result, which was unfortunately disappointment and feeling that that she didn't accomplish what she wanted. And so we started having that conversation, just kind of standing in my carport. And I, basically said to her, I said, however, now you have so much that you've learned and so much that you've gained and so much that you've been able to take away from that experience, that now you have an opportunity to kind of use all of that to figure out and to work on what it is you want now. And in her words, re-entering reality. Because when you're gone for 2 months pursuing your own passion and goal far outside of your real life and work, it can cause a re-entry issue. And she kind of, just kind of contemplated that. And she said, well, my biggest lesson out of all of it was the idea that what I was telling myself and what I was thinking about and what I was feeling about it and what my beliefs were around it was what created the outcome that I received. Not to say there wasn't some economic and some, other, more tangible, intangible barriers and obstacles to her achieving, or at least being able to pursue that goal and objective she had. But at the same time, she also, kind of recognized how much what was going on between her 2 ears was influencing throughout her 2 months and then on her return home. And I said, so what do you think you can take away from that and move forward with? And she said, well, just as you're saying, and I've been, kind of thinking through, I just have to look at all of the blessings, all the lessons, all the pluses, all the great things that came from it. And not to say that I'll never be able to continue to pursue and accomplish it. But right now I just need to use what it is that I've experienced and gained over the last couple months. Well, right there, she felt a shift because she had been feeling kind of disappointed in herself. She had been feeling down. She had been feeling like she wasn't capable or unworthy of it. And yet in this discussion and her realization that what she was telling herself about, not being good enough or capable enough or resourceful enough or whatever the case might be was what was creating that anxiety and that disappointment and that sadness and that stress within herself. And, so that was at like 9 o'clock in the morning, yesterday morning. And then I got on a radio interview with someone and this whole subject came up again. And I thought to myself, there's definitely something the universe is trying to tell me and show me and teach me. And therefore I have to listen a little bit closer. But then what really hit me this morning, as I was even preparing this subject for today, was that, wait a minute, I just had this conversation, 3 weeks ago with a large group of individuals and presenting kind of my view on it. And obviously I should be using all of that in order to train and inspire and coach other people such as yourselves. And so it's a great foundation for the discussion we're going to have today. And I'm even going to like I said, share with you some of that content and give you some tips as far as what can you be doing to really ensure that what is going on between your two ears, that is dictating, directing, navigating, resulting in what is happening in your life, how can you get it to work for you as opposed to against you? All right. So, that's what we'll talk about today. But I am curious if there's a situation that you can reflect back on, even recently, where you said, okay, something great happened or something very disappointing happened. And if I were to put myself in that place at that very moment in time, this was my mindset. This was my attitude. This was my belief systems. This is the feelings that I was having and the thoughts that I was having during this experience. I would be curious to learn from you if they align. And I'll get a little bit more into exactly what that looks like and what that means. But I'd be very curious as to whether or not those things align. Meaning, if it was a great outcome, did you go into it in a great state of mind, in a great state of being, in a great state of openness and creativity and opportunity, so forth and so on? But if it was a disappointing one, or if it was a challenge of one or a stressful one, were you closed off to any type of opportunity being presented to you? Were you already talking to yourself and talking yourself out of whatever it is that you might be pursuing? Were you in your head about whether or not you're worthy or you're capable or you're good enough? And therefore, then that result happened. And we'll talk about the fact that the more mindful you could be and the more present and conscious you could be, it's a wealth of information that you can learn about yourself. All right. So I'm going to share with you what I, discussed with this global organization, and share with you, the tips and the advice that I would give you or anyone that might be helpful in regards to ensuring that you're leveraging and optimizing, and I'll often say exploiting your mindset for good and for all the dreams and aspirations and goals you want to achieve, as opposed to allowing it to sabotage you or hold you back. All right. Because your mindset is your key to success. It absolutely is everything about you, about your approach, your behavior, your attitude, your actions, your words, so forth and so on. And we'll get into all that. So this is what I have found that it comes down to. And this isn't something I've made up, although I always put my twist on things. But as I was looking into just kind of, what is it that's in between our two ears? The first thing many people will tell me is, well, my thoughts are between my two ears. They don't necessarily even think feelings are in between their two ears. They think that's, coming from the heart. And so when I looked at and talked to so many and then looked inward myself, I just recognized that, yes, our beliefs absolutely drive the thoughts that we have. And then the thoughts that we have drive what emotions we present to ourselves or to others. And those emotions drive how we feel: happy, sad, angst, unworthy, which then all of those things will drive the words that you use externally as well as internally. And the result of all of that is going to be what actions you're willing to take based on your state of being at the moment, at the time, and therefore the results that you get. So if you're ever one that is sitting there and you might be saying, why me? Why am I struggling when the next person is not struggling? Why am I not getting the amount of business and activities and engagements and leads and enrollment calls, and the next person appears as if they do. Keep in mind, you don't know reality of that other person, but it appears as if they do and they are. Why? Well, why, asking like why is immediately putting kind of almost a victimhood mindset in place. It's like, why me? Why me? Why me? That's, playing the victim. And as opposed to if you were to, be saying to yourself, either even like, why not me? Why not my creating huge amount of leads, huge amount of enrollment calls, huge amount of revenue, huge amount of happiness and joy, and turning all of the, negative words into more positive words and statements. Because that state of being that you're putting between your two ears and in your heart at times is what's driving whether or not you're taking the action, or at least the appropriate action that you need to in order to get the results that you want. We're going to dive into that even deeper in just a minute. But these are the things that I want you to consider that I always pepper into our conversations, whether we're talking business or we're purely talking the mindset. And that is, what you focus on expands. So if you're focusing on lead generation and focusing on, filling that funnel and having a rich database of new connections and ongoing connections and a large roster of new clients and a list of rich products and services and offerings that you have, and you're focusing on all of that, well, all of that's going to expand for you, keeping your heart and your mind and your spirit all open to all of that coming in. The minute that you start doubting it or start getting discouraged or start beating yourself up is when it all of a sudden closes in. And all of a sudden you'll look around you and you'll see that the results are mirroring kind of your mindset around it. So what we need to do is get into a state of expansion, a state of abundance, and state of enrichment, in state of limitlessness, infiniteness. Is that a word? That will keep you positive and motivated and optimistic and confident and energetic and focused and clear. We have to find all of those beliefs, emotions, thoughts, feelings in order to drive all the great words that you're going to say to yourself and to others, and the great actions you're going to take to get the great results. Then, because that leads to the fact that your thoughts are dominating your actions. If you are, kind of feeling crappy, if you are feeling unworthy, if you are feeling diminished, what type of actions do you think you're going to be taking? And we're going to walk through kind of a scenario in just a minute. And then, of course, what you put out in the universe comes back to you, is returned in kind, as they say. And simply what that means is you smile at someone, someone's going to smile back. You frown at someone, and most likely they're going to frown back or just totally ignore, right? So what you're putting out in the universe is coming back. Now, we've had in the Powerhouse Mavericks community had this conversation just probably 4 or 5 weeks ago within our in our Goals to Riches challenge, as well as even in our Get Clients Jumpstart or Masterclass. And I talk a lot about it just because I know for myself it took a good number of years for me to really just all of a sudden go, oh my God, crap. Those 25 years, 30 years, pre realization, pre self-awareness, everything that happened to me, good, bad, or indifferent, was as a result of not anybody around me, not, any doors that were opening or closing, not any hurt, pain, tragedy, illness that came about. It was purely my view and my perception, my belief and my feelings and my emotions and my thoughts around it that drove whatever came out of it. So what I really want you to be looking at is, all right, how do I get my head around and how do I really start understanding and being self-aware and conscious of this idea that what I believe is driving my thoughts, which is driving my emotions, driving my feelings, driving my words, therefore actions and results. And my first, tip and suggestion would be just stay as present as possible. And when you want a certain outcome, ensure your mindset is in the place to support that outcome as opposed to derail it or to sabotage it. So let me, walk through a really basic, simple example illustrated here. And that is, say you got up first thing this morning, as I did. Actually, I can use my own example, but say you got up first thing this morning and it was dark and it was gloomy and it was raining and it was cold and you didn't have the heat on in the house, and therefore you're just dreading having to get out from under those warm covers and kind of put your feet maybe on, like me, on a wood ground that could be cold as opposed to a carpet. um and you know and so you're in this kind of mental, physical, emotional, spiritual state of being, and you don't do anything to kind of shift yourself out of it. So you get up, you put your feet on the ground, and you remain in that state. And you're blaming the darkness, you're blaming the cold, the rain. You're even saying to yourself, "Oh, well, it's raining today, so I don't need to get a lot of work done, or I don't need to finish that project, or I don't need to call that prospective client. I'm just going to either, sleep in, or I'm going to, lay around on the couch, or I'm just going to do anything but." Um, and then you go out in the world and maybe you come face to face with people or you don't. But say you do. And the next thing you know, you're carrying this gloominess, this darkness, this coldness in your heart and in your head and in the beliefs that you have, which are, oh, it's dark and gloomy and rainy, which then is feeding into your thoughts, which is, oh, it's such a crappy day. I don't really want to do anything. I'm not in the mood to do anything or talk to anybody, which is driving your feelings, which is crap. Like, oh, which then is then determining the words and the actions that you're going after. You might use words to yourself or to others that are on the negative, the dark, the bleak, the victim side, as well as then the actions you take are either actions that aren't supporting necessarily your goals, but just to kind of get you through the day, or they're even inaction. You're not doing anything. Think about the last time you had a really bad, crappy day. And maybe it was just a day, but maybe it was a week or a month, a period in time where you're just like not feeling it. And then just kind of consider all of the events and the encounters and the experiences that you had, the actions that you took, even the words that you used to yourself or to others, your behavior, and then consider, okay, so what were the results of it? Many people and my clients that are in that kind of dark state of being will often, kind of continue to say, why am I struggling? Why am I not getting, the business that I have been working so hard to, and they're moving and they are taking action. But then when we look at it, they're taking the actions that are getting them by, that are getting them through, not necessarily that are, the right ones aligned to the goals that they have, because they're also in this dark, gloomy state. They're also, making excuses to say, well, I really don't want to do any prospecting, or I don't want to have to send any emails and get rejected because I already feel yucky. So I don't want to feel any worse than I'm currently feeling. So the next thing you know, that's just snowballing. And they find themselves at the end of the week, end of the month, sometimes at the end of the year, where they're nowhere near what it is that they have laid out for themselves. So consider for yourself the last time there was a dark, kind of depressing angst of a day, and kind of walk through a mental replay or a visual replay of that and see if you can link, those things together. Let me give you another example before we move on to the right side. But another example of this that went on for decades for me was I am one of 12 children. And when I was between 1 and 10, I was very much the milkman's daughter, the postman's daughter, the Candyman's daughter. I was just constantly bombarded with teasing around the fact that I didn't look like, sound like, act like, anything like all my other siblings, all 11 other siblings. And I didn't. I was very different in appearance and behavior and voice and everything else. And so all this innocent teasing that kids would make about me being an adopted and no, I'm not really a Bose and all this. Well, I didn't think twice about it, though. At the age of 10, I did go crying to my mother and say, Mom, is this true? Am I adopted? Because, all this teasing and game playing. And she just laughed and she said, honey, no, I have 11 of you. I don't need to be adopting a 12th, but more so, you'll just work your way into, who you are and you'll learn one day, which I did in my 20s. All of a sudden, things started moving around and whatnot. But the point of that was until I was in my mid to late 40s, I believed that I did not fit in anywhere. If I didn't fit in with my family, how do I fit in with my friends? How do I fit in with a sport group that I'm hanging out with? How do I fit in with the kids at school? How do I fit in with the crowd, so to speak? My belief in those early days of not being a Bose, of being adopted, turned into my thoughts and my emotions around, well, I don't fit in with my family. I don't belong to my family. So where else am I not really belonging or fitting? Which then turned into all the feelings that I had about it, which was, just an outsider, weird, just not part of the crowd. And then that drove a great deal of the words that I used and the actions that I took and the behavior that I had, which then drove out the results, which was a lot of pain and hardship and difficulty and challenge that I never would have had I just reconciled that. Now, you're not reconciling these things at 10. At the same time, if you're 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, and you're still struggling with why your world and your universe right now is the way that it is, then, the point would be to take time to really understand it and really look back and really dissect all the different beliefs that you had from a very young age all the way through and the impact of those beliefs to your feelings, emotions, thoughts, words, and actions. And when I realized this in my mid to late 40s, I was just like, damn, but at the same time, I was able to kind of reconcile it, confront it, and let it go, or how I say, shed it, and really see how that was so untrue for 40 some odd years of my life. And yet I allowed it to affect every aspect of who I was at the time. So that was kind of, the left side. On the right side, so say in the very similar scenario of the person getting up and feeling cold, rainy, say you get up in the morning and it's sunny and bright and you had a great night's sleep and you assessed how you're feeling and you're almost like percolating with excitement and energy and determination to get up and go conquer the world. And when you do, and you put your feet on the ground, you go, everybody seems to be smiling and everybody seems to be greeting you, whether that's in person, over the phone, online, whatever the case might be. It just, all of a sudden there's this swell of activity and engagement and people all of a sudden that you never expected to call or calling and opportunities you never expected to have are showing up. And at the end of the day, you kind of sit down and you just kind of go, damn, that was a good day. that was a productive day. I'm exhausted, but it's a good exhaustion. And, so kind of turn back and consider the last time you had that type of experience. Could have been yesterday, could have been this morning. This morning, I woke up on the dark side, physically, literally, like outside. But yet, my whole mindset was on the right side, was on the sunny and bright and optimistic and warm. And I found all the good things that the dark, gloomy rain was bringing. And that was the opportunity to get kind of in my mom's robe. I posted a photo earlier. I wrapped myself in my mother's robe that she always wore, that I still can smell, her scent, even though it's been a number of years since she's been passed. And so I wrapped myself up in the robe. I made myself a cup of cocoa, and I sat down at my desk, and it was just like, pow, wow, 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 wow. I was just so excited about everything that was going on. And so there's an easy opportunity to determine for yourself what it is you want, regardless of the mindset that you have at a moment in time. And so I love this quote, and I just replaced, man with woman. But I love this quote because it is so true that the woman who thinks she can't and the woman who thinks she can are both right. So if you're on the left side and you think you can't, guess what? You're right. You can't, and you probably won't, because you're telling yourself that it's hard, that it's painful, that it's challenging, that it's expensive, that it's undeserving, that it's not capable, or you're not capable. And therefore you're right. And your actions and your results are going to reflect that. But if you are on the right side and you're sitting there going, oh gosh, I cannot, it doesn't matter that it's raining and storming and glooming and everybody's boo-hooing and everybody else is complaining about the fact that the business is all gone because of everything that's been going on the last couple of years. And I'm just going to ignore all of that. And I'm so optimistic and confident and energized. And I'm not really even maybe maxed up and amped up in all those areas, but I am confident. I do believe in myself. I know I am resourceful. I know I am worthy, even if it's not like woohoo, but it's woo, or it's woo. But any degree of that positivity and that confidence and that energy is just going to create a swell, almost like a monsoon or a tsunami, I think I was looking for, of opportunities coming your way. And you're right if you believe you can. So I love this. The woman who thinks she can't and the woman who thinks she can, they're both right. And what we want to do is make sure you're focused on that you can. And the fact that if you wake up in the morning, or say you wake up in the morning, you're like, woohoo, and then all of a sudden you get a phone call that's not so good. And then all of a sudden you find yourself blah. Well, there's still even opportunities in that moment to turn that around and just shift. And to say, okay, so I'm going to use, and look at this situation, good, the darkness of it, the bad of it, the hardship of it, the victimhood of it, the painful part of it, the strife of it. And I'm just going to be, I'm just going to shift every one of those over to where I can. And it's going to be, I can overcome all of those negative thoughts, feelings, emotions, beliefs, and turn them into positive. All right. And so that is really the key to you having power, you having control over what it is that you're experiencing, what it is that you're then acting on, and then what it is that you're realizing in results or outcomes and experiences, because of the fact that you are in control, you're making the decisions, you're navigating your own path, and you're not allowing other things to sabotage it. But you could be part of that issue of sabotage. So you need to consider the external factors, but you also need to consider the internal, what's going on in between your two ears. All right. So I wanted to kind of lay out for you some mindset hacks around what you could be doing to work on trying to be as self-aware and intentional and conscious to the fact that your belief systems is driving everything. Your thoughts and emotions are driving everything. Your feelings are driving everything. And they're all driving the words you use, the actions you take, and therefore the results that you get. So here are a few. Self-assess. Now, when it comes to self-assess, almost like what I did when I started not only writing my book, Shedding the Corporate Bitch, back in 2010, but I recognized that I really needed to make some major adjustments and shifts in my heart and my head in order to change the person that I was, or at least find the person that I used to be that I then lost and I wanted her back. And so self-assessing can get really deep, or you can just start very simply at asking yourself some key questions. But what I did was I literally went back to my earliest of memories, and I worked myself forward. Every moment, every experience, every, you know, calendar date, So if it wasn't an experience or an event that I could pull out, I then said, okay, so, what's my earliest memory? What was I like when I was 5? What did I believe? What did I think? What did I feel? How about that 10? Because that was a big pivotal moment for me. I remembered that experience and I remembered I was 10. And then, 15 and 20, so you just move yourself forward. If you don't want to go that deep, and or if you need support to go that deep, but if you don't want to go that deep, then just consider, ask yourself, what are my beliefs? What do I believe about myself and what's happening to me, what's happening for me, what's happening around me? Just get an idea right now in this point in time of what your beliefs are, what your thoughts are, what your emotions are, what your feelings are. And if you can also then make that a daily practice to where you're taking some time to really kind of self-assess, then that'll bring you tremendous opportunity and growth as you move forward. I mention quite often my morning routine. I have two, but the one is even before I put my feet on the ground in the morning. When my eyes, kind of open, and I use an alarm, but I don't necessarily ever have to, wait for it. But when I open my eyes up, before I put my feet on the ground, I just get still. And I go from toe to head to toe, physically, emotionally, spiritually, mentally. And if I don't like any part of what's coming up that I think is going to, put value out into the world, then I take time right there to make shifts, to make some shifts. And I'll tell you what, too, and we could discuss this another day, but if you're physically ailing or have pains, there's tremendous evidence that, you really focusing mentally and emotionally and spiritually on relieving that pain, that it happens. And so even if I'm laying there and I feel like, oh, pickleball got the best of me, or, the gym and the weightlifting got the best of me, or just sleeping got the best of me, I even really focus on ensuring that I can physically shift into that sunny, bright, pain-free state of being. But so self-assess yourself, whether it's deep or whether it's just on the surface. Just spend some time with yourself trying to understand. And then seek feedback. Seek feedback from others around you. Once you do, work for yourself, then you can seek other people's, you can ask them, what's your perception of me? If you were to use one word, how would you describe me? What do you understand about me? What do you believe my thoughts and my belief system is all about? Through my behavior and my engagement with you, what are my values and my qualities? If you aren't, if you're uncomfortable doing that work yourself and acknowledging these things, ask for a third opinion, and then seek coaching around it. Whether that's from a friend, a colleague, a professional, whatever the case might be. But I just know for myself, um, you know, being 46, 48, suddenly realizing some of this, let alone a lot of it like I do today, it was just life transforming. But then I did have a coach for 10 years up until 2019 that really, really helped and accelerated my attention and my consciousness and my self-awareness, as well as my education and my growth around it. So seek coaching if need be. And then just work on learning something on a daily basis. I mentioned Mind Valley. There's a whole slew of different type of, um, if not a coach or a being, you can, there's tons of online platforms that you can learn from when it comes to this masterclass, Mind Valley, and then experts have their own programs as well. But work to learn something every day. As long as you're on this earth breathing, you want to be learning, because when you learn, you grow, as opposed to stay stagnant, comfortable where you are. Stretch yourself and want to learn, and journal, because that's the best teacher in the world. It is about yourself. My dad passed down journaling to me. He would always carry around a little spiral notebook in his pocket, and he would journal anywhere he went. Not necessarily the way I journal, but more so just keeping track of what he was doing, and where he was going, and how much it was costing, and how he felt about the experience, that kind of thing. And journaling allows you just to kind of purge anything and everything that you're feeling or thinking, or believing, and then just really spending time to understand it so you can learn about yourself, let alone learn new things beyond yourself. Of course, there's affirmations, ensuring that, that woman who can't, coming up with affirmations that shift her into the woman who can. So I can achieve anything. I can build my business full and rich of clients and revenue. I can take on that huge project that I've been offered. I can speak in front of hundreds of people. Whatever it is that you're struggling with, just shift it from the I can't to I can, and then just use those as affirmations. One of my favorites, it's not an I can, but it's God loves me. Who could be against me? And that just kind of recenters me in when I'm thinking that, there's an opportunity where I can be rejected or not fit in. And then I just kind of say that to myself a few times, and all of a sudden I just feel grounded and I feel shifted into a more positive, deserving mind space. And then, as I mentioned, practice mindfulness being very present, very aware of where you are right now, not 5 seconds from now, or not 5 seconds, behind you, but right now, and being mindful of what you're thinking and feeling and saying and believing. Because right then and there, you can make a shift and you can say, nope, I don't want that. I want something else. So really kind of getting still and really practicing. Some people look at it as meditation and yoga and those other modalities. But, just mindfulness is just giving yourself time to breathe and to really go in and learn about yourself. Fail fast. I love trying new things. And if it works, awesome. And if it doesn't, well, I'm going to keep trying until either I get it to work, or I recognize it's not a priority, or it's not what I'm meant to be doing. That happened actually this morning. Now that I think about it, that happened actually this morning. I was working on something, and I just kept trying to kind of put a square peg in a round hole. And I just kept saying to myself, but I need to. This needs to work. And then I recognize, I'm like, no, it doesn't. Why? And then I reconciled that. Oh, well, the why was more from other external factors and pressures, as opposed to what I would want. So go out and test things when it comes to your own growth. and fail fast and just move on to the next. Self-care, obviously, I was about to say obviously. See, I'm trying to be present right now, watching my words, because self-care is not that obvious, especially to women, a lot of women. So you have to recognize, like they say in the airport, and I know it's overused, but put the mask on someone, you're on yourself first before helping anybody else. You have to take care of yourself first in order for you to be 100% for everybody else. How can you be 100% for anything if you're not 100%? And so you need to fill that gap. You need to get yourself to that 100%. And you need to be selfish about it, because then you can be selfless when it comes to wanting to help other people and be there for other people. But you have to care for yourself. And then, of course, seek change. As I mentioned, when it came to learning something new every day until you die, because you want to be growing all the time. You don't want to get stagnant and bored and comfortable. And so that's what seeking change is about as well. Seek something new you could be doing or learning, or a new person you could be engaging with, or a new hobby you can take up, or just a new piece of knowledge that you can gain for yourself, a new affirmation, a new meditation, a new whatever, a new route to work, or a new route to, dinner, whatever the case might be. But always look for ways to shake things up and to change, because as you change, as you try new things, you are changing, whether or not it's a huge kind of self-aware change, or it's just kind of a small purposeful, change, meant to then add on and complement and enrich other things that are evolving in your world. But seek change. It's a beautiful, wonderful thing. It's not something to be scared of or to avoid, because whether you pay attention to it and control it yourself and navigate your own change, the world's changing around you. So you might as well kind of be the one steering your ship, as opposed to, having someone else steering it for you. Okay. But seek some change. You'll benefit greatly from it. So if if you have any questions or comments in regards to any of this, I would love to hear it. At the same time, if you need some guidance, and maybe you just need to be like, Bernadette, I get what you're saying, but I don't really get it. Like, I don't really believe it, because trust me, I was there. I would hear these things, especially those 3 statements that I mentioned earlier. What you focus on expands, your dominant thoughts rule your actions. What you put out in the universe, comes back to you. I've heard those for probably a decade or more. And for years, I was just like, I don't know what all that's about. It doesn't make sense. It's all woo woo to me. And yet, as I mentioned around this whole conversation, the universe over the years, or God over the years, has just led me more and more, whether it was a subtle, kind of movement he wanted me to make, or whether or not he smacked me across the head to jolt me awake. But it definitely, just became more and more and more apparent, but also more and more evidence around how influential your beliefs, emotions, feelings, thoughts, and actions have on the results that and what your world looks like. But if you're struggling in any way, or you just want additional tips and advice around it, then feel free to reach out to me and schedule some complimentary time with me. You can go to Coach Me Bernadette. I'll put this up there if it's easier to see. CoachMeBernadette.com/spot coaching call. And let's spend 30 minutes discussing it. And let me give you some tips and recommendations and next steps, so you can continue on your own path. All right. But I hope this was educational and informational for you. And at any point in time, whether you watch this live or in our replay, leave comments, leave your questions. I'll get to you directly with anything that you might need to kind of get your mindset working for you as opposed to against you. All right. And for all those in the Powerhouse Mavericks group, again, if anybody is interested in joining us, go over to Facebook and just Google Powerhouse Mavericks. And we are there to support female coaches, consultants, and service providers who are struggling to break through their money and time ceilings so they can get clients and money in the door and create riches in their work and life. And then you can learn more about me at balloffirecoaching.com. But we'll all see each other out in our Powerhouse Mavericks group. Have a wonderful week, a bright, sunny, motivating, energetic week. And I will talk with you real soon. Take care, everybody. Bye.